is correct. It is certainly not just right-leaning academics who are really, really, really concerned about these DEI statements, because they are very much ideological litmus tests. And that's not appropriate at all for a university whose job is to pursue the truth. You've been on this channel enough times. You know full well what I think of DEI statements, or diversity, equity, inclusion criteria, or some such things, and I've profiled it a number of times, going off of others. The rubrics that are being used, the statements that are being sent and required for hiring, for tenure, for promotion. And why I'm focusing on this is precisely because of the universities. Of course, universities are currently where we train the next generation of scientists. And one of the important things is the diversity of thought and viewpoint diversity. And so DEI statements present a contradiction. You want people to have a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, or put it more plainly, a commitment to being inclusive of diverse viewpoints. But at the same time, said DEI statement is politicized to such a degree at this point that you're actually removing it to be inclusive of only the viewpoints you want, which means you're not actually inclusive of diverse viewpoints at all. How can you be inclusive of diverse viewpoints if your first and primary task for selecting someone, or one of your primary criteria at all, is basically excluding people for a different viewpoint? So, I'm not the only one, of course, who has been raising the alarm on these things, and I want to point out to a couple of different things, one a little older and one much more recent, that just to cheer for these folks and make sure you know about them, make sure it's like, for those of you who might be in this situation, that you're definitely not alone in these kinds of things, as I myself have been pushing back quite vociferously on these things. Let me show you. This comes from now, was originally the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, is now recently expanded, renamed itself the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression here, but still FIRE. June 2nd, 2022, FIRE releases statement on use of diversity, equity, inclusion criteria in faculty hiring and evaluation. FIRE is concerned by the proliferation of college and university policies requiring applicants or current faculty to demonstrate their commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, often through a written statement that factors into hiring, reappointment, evaluation, promotion, or tenure decisions. In our newly released Q&A and full statement on the use of diversity, equity, inclusion criteria in faculty hiring, we explain how DEI statement policies can too easily function as ideological litmus tests that threaten employment or advancement opportunities for faculty who dissent from prevailing thought on DEI. Over the past few years, FIRE has heard from countless faculty members concerned that their university's DEI statement policy violates the First Amendment, academic freedom principles, or both. Numerous complaints have prompted FIRE's intervention. Our statement provides guidance to universities to ensure they respect faculty members' expressive freedom when seeking to advance DEI. Here's where I gotta say FIRE is all off the kilter. Postmodernist DEI stuff, which is what most of it is, literally does not allow for debate and disagreement. Does not allow it if it comes off of the critical theory, postmodern sense of it. You can get this from Cynical Theories from James Lindsay and Helen Pleckrose, who did a great little summary of it. Along with Counter Wokecraft, actually, is another book. But it is a mess. So this is where you're going to end up at odds, FIRE, I think, with the things here. So it's a little woefully so to presume necessarily that there's a desire for dialogue in some of these instances. But anyway, let's see. FIRE recognizes that universities generally may pursue DEI-related initiatives, but at institutions bound by the First Amendment or their own promises of expressive freedom, those efforts must not threaten free speech or academic freedom. Our statement explains that the ideals of free speech and diversity and inclusivity are not mutually exclusive, and in fact, the latter depends on the former. When universities uphold expressive freedom, they allow for diversity of voices and perspectives to flourish and create space for dialogue across the lines of identity and ideology. Again, problem with this is they don't necessarily disagree, and they don't necessarily agree. That and what have you. And if you've been following on Twitter, or if you noticed the last Rogue Journal Club episode on audio, which will be available on video later this week, but we talked about the recent piece in the Journal of Physical Chemistry Letters, which was basically along the lines of arguing that censorship in the name of being inclusive is okay, which it's not. But that is where we're getting to at certain points. No. In order to not offend people, we have to censor certain things. Even the ridiculous statement in Scientific American calling for, I did cover it on this channel a while back. The ridiculous statement in an article in Scientific American arguing that you can't have the normal distribution, and the person who wrote it clearly does not understand what the normal distribution is in statistics. But that's a whole other problem. But I think that's where FIRE is perhaps being a little too generous with this crowd of folks. But institutions of higher education have both authority and obligation to prevent unlawful discrimination on campus. Exactly. Civil Rights Act, amongst other things, as well as the interest of employing faculty who work toward the academic success of students of various backgrounds and identities. But DEI policies frequently go further, compelling faculty to affirm contested views on matters of public debate or to embed specific ideological perspectives in their academic activities. This violates faculty members' individual rights and thwarts values like intellectual freedom, epistemic humility, open-mindedness that underlie a university's mission to produce and disseminate knowledge. As our statement explains, these policies are especially concerning given that adverse consequences for those who hold or voice dissenting, minority, or simply unpopular opinions are increasingly common across campus. Very true statement. Very true statement. I forget, but it's in FIRE's database that it was something like 400 at least incidences since 2015 and increasing year over year. I forget the exact number off the top of my head. It's escaping me. The last thing universities need is another tool for enforcing ideological conformity, this time in the form of politicized DEI policy statement policies. FIRE will continue to strongly oppose the use of DEI statement policies that restrict faculty members' freedom of expression or academic freedom. We stand ready to help faculty whose rights are in jeopardy. So, that's FIRE. That was in June of 2022. June 2nd, 2022. I think that's before they did their official rebrand, but such things there, and you'll have to apologize. I got a cat behind me, so who knows what's going to happen in a minute. But, nope, that's not the one I wanted. Much more recently, August 22nd, 2022, the Academic Freedom Alliance. So this is one of the many institutions now that does their best to defend researchers and faculty at universities and staff against the craziness and defend the academic freedom therein. And I actually really liked how this was worded, so I may end up reading the whole thing. The Academic Freedom Alliance urges institutions of higher education to desist from demanding, quote, diversity statements as conditions of employment or promotion. The rapid and widespread dissemination of such statements has proceeded with far too little attentiveness to obvious threats to academic freedom. At the very least, institutions should pause any continued solicitation of diversity statements until there has been a thorough airing of their putative benefits, how they are assessed and used, and what safeguards can protect against misuse, and what might constitute less dangerous alternatives. The practice that prompts our concern is requiring that members of prospective members of faculties submit statements in which they are forced to detail ways in which they have advanced or plan to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. A School of Engineering requires that all applications for faculty positions include a, quote, statement of your experience with or knowledge of inclusion, diversity, equity, and belonging efforts, and your plans for incorporating them into your teaching, research, mentoring, and service. A School of Medicine has proposed that faculty members, quote, be required to show effort toward advancing DEI in at least one mission area for which they are evaluated by including a short narrative DEI summary in their personal statement and by listing DEI-related activities on their CVs. A history department directs applicants to submit a diversity statement that, quote, highlights an understanding of the role of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in a university setting. Please include examples from past experiences and reference plans to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in your teaching, research, and service. You see? And I can tell you it's more places than just that. It's trickled into some STEM-related stuff, which is absolutely disturbing. Requirements for diversity statements have spread quickly and will continue to do so absent a determined effort to persuade academia to reconsider a practice with conspicuously disturbing features. Yeah. Let me just pause there and just say, yeah. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's just that some faculty don't think it's going to affect them. But it is basically going to screw over the next generation, who are maybe a bit more like me. Is folks on this channel know I am not I'm not a mid-career scientist. I'm still technically early career myself. So it's kind of, it's kind of disturbing to see this kind of stuff, and it's just like you're potentially screwing me out of some opportunities because of this stuff. Because I don't agree with a lot of this stuff, and I don't think anyone should be forced to make a political commitment for anything. Oh, and there's a cat behind me. I don't think anybody should be forced to make that, but let's see what else the Academic Freedom Alliance has to say. Academics seeking employment or promotion will almost inescapably feel pressured to say things that accommodate the perceived ideological preferences of an institution demanding a diversity statement, notwithstanding the actual beliefs or commitments of those forced to speak. Okay. One of the things I want to say to this is a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Let the lie come into the world. Let it even triumph, but not through me. Just don't say something if you don't think it's true. You don't have to say something to the opposite, but don't say you agree with something if you don't think it's true. Just don't. If you don't think it's a true statement, don't speak it. This scenario is inimical to the fundamental values that should govern academic life. The demand for diversity statements enlists academics into a political movement, erasing the distinction between academic expertise and ideological conformity. It encourages cynicism and dishonesty. An industry of diversity statement counseling has already... I gotta look that up, because I did not know that. I actually did not know that. Has already emerged. That there's already companies doing counseling for how to write your diversity statements? That's just freaking disturbing. More money, please. More money, please, right? More money, please, in that mess. And could easily have been predicted. There are prevalent and reasonable suspicions that beneath the stated rationales for diversity statements lurk unstated motives that include providing a way to screen out candidates who express ambivalence about DEI programming. The growing regime of DEI testing through forced pledges of conformity threatens to impose a suffocating orthodoxy, penalizing expressions of DEI skepticism though such skepticism exists across a wide ideological range that includes not only right-leaning scholars, but left-leaning scholars as well. Fortunately, there are signs that an increasing number of academics are becoming aware of the need to respond with candor and determination to procedures that might seem to be innocuous, but that are detrimental to core values of higher education. Exactly. Primus purpose of a university, primus purpose, telos of being a scientist, is the pursuit of the truth. And you cannot do that without diverse viewpoints and perspectives. And you can't have diverse viewpoints and perspectives if you are forcing people to express a particular belief. Or if you are selecting only those people who have particular beliefs. You can't have it. It just won't work. It just won't work. They're incompatible with each other. The Academic Freedom Alliance supports efforts to ensure that colleges and universities offer all members of their communities, staff, students, and faculty environments free of bigotry. We also support efforts by institutions of higher learning to do all they can, consistent with their academic mission, to ensure that faculty members offer their students on an equitable basis. Equal basis. Equal basis. Equal opportunity basis. Because remember, equitable in practice tends to mean having equality of outcome here, not equality of opportunity. It is, however, our firm conviction that compelled diversity statements undermine the best of the intentions that propel DEI initiatives. It is one thing for schools to take action against wrongful discriminatory conduct. Institutions are under legal as well as moral and pedagogical obligation to do that. A very different and disturbing thing is monitoring beliefs by demanding pledges of allegiance to an array of policies that are often vague, frequently ambiguous, and invariably controversial. Yeah. Indeed with that, right? Yeah, it's certainly certainly interesting here, and I wonder, no, I didn't read the fire statement. The fire statement is different, because that's actually what this is, the statement from fire here that I had over here, and didn't think it was a good thing to go all the way through it, because it is quite long. But I give props to the Academic Freedom Alliance for chiming in and calling this quite a stern thing, although I kind of like don't start using their, well, I could see it going both ways. I could see it going both ways, using the language equitable and trying to force it back into the definition that we know to be being equal opportunity. But at the same time, it's been co-opted that I don't know that actually using it is going to make all that much of a difference. But that is a whole other conversation. But I am happy to see things like this. That's why I bring this up on this channel, is that there are actually people who are pushing back. So it's like one of those days when you know you're not alone with these kinds of things and pushing back on it, because I very much agree. These are ideological litmus tests, these DEI statements. They have no place in academia. They do not belong in the slightest. It's not about getting people who are compassionate. That's the charitable way to think of it. But it is most definitely about getting a particular perspective and making sure people have a particular worldview or are engaged in political activism that you like. And that's not particularly what I'm interested in as a scientist in terms of my career. Anything outside of the office, sure, whatever, but not here, not in as part of my career. So if you want to give some help here, you know, you can always contact the Academic Freedom Alliance. They're one of the ones who actually make sure to challenge certain things, and they do give support to folks who are facing unfair retaliation for cancellation over such things. Same thing with fire. So, you know, I'd bring that up with them, and that's where to go for those of you who are in academia, students, or students. Well, fire will handle students more than the AFA will, but you know, make sure you can speak your mind. And these are the kinds of groups that will help with that, because AFA is correct. It is certainly not just right-leaning academics who are really, really, really concerned about these DEI statements, because they are very much ideological litmus tests. And that's not appropriate at all for a university whose job is to pursue the truth. That's it for now. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door if you like the video. Comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. And until next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious.